Greetings all, this is Bradley Meyer with the DePIN Connection. Very excited for this interview today. We are here with Mark Fidelman with Exabits. I recently did an overview video on this project. They are doing some huge things in the space. Mark, I appreciate you joining today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For sure. I know you were super busy. I believe I saw you were just in East Denver, so I'm sure you're playing catch up as always.
Yeah.
But to kick things off, would love for you to give us a little bit about your background and the things you were doing leading up to joining Exabits.
Yeah. I mean, I spent over 2 decades scaling tech and SaaS companies. Within the last 3 years, diving deep into AI, blockchain for the last 7, really, and now Web3. So my focus has always been on disrupting industries through technology, from leading global marketing campaigns to advising the Fortune 500 on how to leverage decentralized networks. So when Exabits approached me, I saw something far beyond just another GPU provider. They were positioning themselves as the base layer of compute. And I think through our discussion here, we'll find out why that's really important, especially when we get into AI agents and AGI when that comes to fruition.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a lot on the horizon. We are truly in the golden age of AI right now.
Most people don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I've learned a lot listening to some of your recent interviews, actually. I implore people to, check out Exabits and look at some of the recent interviews Mark's done. There is so much happening in AI right now. We are just getting started. I mean, the demand is picking up. Speaking of the demand, though, curious, I know you guys have been doing a lot of building, right? I first came across you all, it was about a year ago. I was at Consensus, actually, in Austin, Texas. Came across Jonathan at your booth and spoke with him and was really blown away by what you all are doing. And I know recently you really started to pick up the marketing effort, especially since you've joined. You've done a great job of that, by the way. Would love for people that are, just maybe learning about Exabits and kind of scratching the surface here. What's your elevator pitch? Or how would you explain what Exabits is doing from a high level?
I mean, it depends on our audience, of course, but to the crypto audience, we say we're the NVIDIA of compute. And if you want me to define for the audience what compute is, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, let's dig in for sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you look at NVIDIA, everyone knows about their GPU chips. They power gaming, graphics, and AI. And I mean, they just got lucky and fell into that. But good for them. I mean, they're a good company. So what compute is taking those chips and putting a lot of infrastructure around it, optimizing it, making it more efficient, and ultimately less or less costly. And these usually reside in data centers, although they could be off of somebody's laptop. I wouldn't recommend that. And so compute is all of that process and systems around these chips to make AI processing actually economical and more powerful.
That's a pretty good description. I feel like you might have given that before, maybe once or twice. I would say you're doing a pretty good job too. This is very noteworthy, I'd say. Towards the end of last year, you all had a $15 million investment round at $150 million valuation. I believe you all also hit $10 million in revenue last year, and you're seeing pretty explosive growth at 300% growth quarter over quarter. Am I correct on all those?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give out exact numbers, but we've had insane growth trajectory, and we're just getting started.
Love that. So there are a lot of different GPU aggregators in the Web3 space, especially the decentralized GPU sector has seen a lot of growth. Yeah. Curious, and I think this is really important to hit on, because you all are doing something truly different than everyone else. So would love for you to highlight those differentiators and why you are really becoming the true base layer, especially when it comes to high-end compute.
Yeah, and I want to say we work with most of these other players as kind of their compute provider. But most decentralized GPU projects are just marketplaces. They match buyers and sellers, but they don't fix the underlying inefficiencies in compute. And that's where we fill that gap. If you look at that stack of delivering AI to humans, we just don't resell GPU time. We optimize it, make it more efficient. We make it less costly than going to an Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. And we build these high performance compute clusters. So just individual GPUs don't operate as well as a cluster of GPUs that are able to talk to one another and leverage each other in order to provide more powerful compute for, enterprise grade. We position ourselves as more enterprise grade. And then just recently, we've talked about how we financialize compute, making it actually an asset class. So think of it this way: if GPU marketplaces are rental companies, Exabits is the refinery producing the high octane fuel.
Okay, that makes sense. And by the way, touching on, and you've mentioned this several times, and you just touched on it now. You don't look at them as competitors. I mean, you guys are partnered with some of these other projects, very notable ones. Akash Network, you have IONET on here. What's another one? Aether's on here. So just diving in a little bit further, as you said, those are marketplaces that are connecting consumers with compute resources. But you said you are supplying the compute in many cases to these different platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, not all the time, but enterprise level compute, we're probably best positioned with them. We really like them. They're high quality partners, or else we wouldn't be partnered with them. But we don't compete with them. We like to partner. We'd like to power them, and we supply them with optimized GPU clusters. I mean, if you're an end user looking to get into AI compute, you should be asking these tough questions, because sometimes they'll put you on 100 different laptops, and it's just not going to give you the performance that you need. If you need enterprise level compute, that's where you have to demand that these marketplaces use somebody like Exabits.
Gotcha. And that is something I want to dig in more on these AI data centers, because in doing the research on the video I did over your project, I learned a lot. Because
Yeah, you did.
I have to say, that's one of the things I love about doing these deep dives, is I get to learn a lot. But it's such a fascinating space and such a high growth space with so much opportunity. But the NVIDIA chips are one aspect of it, right? Is getting access to those, but then actually constructing those into GPUs and then building out the data centers is a whole other aspect. And that's really what you all thrive in. So would love for you to touch more on the build out of these AI data centers and why you guys are so well positioned in building those out.
Well, first of all, the team is full of PhDs from Princeton, Stanford, Harvard. I think we have somebody from MIT as well, all PhDs. So I'm in a room with them and I'm like, what are they talking about? But we also have people ex-Google, Microsoft, and Meta engineers that are on the AI infrastructure side. And then we obviously have top tier NVIDIA and AMD partnerships. It's not all NVIDIA. AMD is coming on pretty strong. And then we have people that have built $1 billion cloud businesses, because that's the important aspect of it, right? You're renting it from us, so it's got to be done in a way that's very efficient and very, very fast. So for us, it's never been just about the GPUs. You can all get GPUs, although they're very expensive. Running them yourself is very expensive. For us, it's about structuring them into scalable, high-performance AI compute that no one else is doing, not even the big three.
And one of the things I've been reading about in your documentation is about some of the efficiencies that you all have been able to experience, because the data centers, to have the space to house the GPUs, the power that's necessary is pretty remarkable in itself. The cooling systems, all that, but then you guys have some proprietary software that's allowed you to drive efficiencies and really help get the refinery, if you will, to help get the most out of those assets. So what are some of those parameters or some of those efficiencies that you guys have experienced so far?
Yeah, part of it's hardware, a lot of it's software. And just think of these as algorithms to drive the most out of whatever GPU you're using. It's not the same algorithm if you're on an H100 versus an H200 versus anything else. Everything has got to be fine-tuned, not just to the GPUs, but to the project. A lot of people don't realize this. The way you use AI might be different than the way ChatGPT uses AI or DeepSeek uses AI. And so everything's got to be fine-tuned for that particular use case. That's a big challenge. So our software does that almost automatically. We have to make some tweaks. So imagine a race car that you've just purchased and they're putting 88 octane into it when it should require like 107, like race car fuel. And you might not even know that if you're not educated about how things work. So we make sure you get the most octane out of everything that you're doing AI wise.
Gotcha. And so you all are kind of coming in as consultants, if you will, because I know you do own some, GPUs yourself, but in many cases you're coming in, facilitating the build out of these data centers, and then helping also monetize it on the other end by connecting them with customers in these different platforms. Correct?
It's very expensive. As a startup, you're not building a big data center. So we've taken the model of, hey, we'll come in and run it for you once you've built it, and we'll optimize it and we'll make money for you, but you're going to pay us to do that. And the end result is you have fully optimized GPUs, and you're making money on when normally they'd be down. So that's our business model around the world, actually.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little further, I would say you all are doing a pretty good job that you were trusted with bringing on 4,000 H200s.
Yes.
That is, how would you put that into perspective, that type of scale? Because I think for a lot of people, they're like, okay, cool, 4,000 H200s, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, adding 4,000 H200 GPUs makes us one of the few providers with access to NVIDIA's latest AI hardware. A lot of people don't even have access to H200s, and we're going to have access to 4,000 of them when they're all online. But we're not stopping there. Blackwell is coming out in 2025, and we're scaling to support that next wave of AI innovation. When we talk about AGI and AI agents in a minute, that's the kind of level that we're going to need to power them.
Amazing. Also, by the way, new website. Love the layout. I think you guys just revamped that recently.
We did.
Speaking of the data centers around the world, so obviously you have some across North America here. You have some in Europe as well, and Asia. Curious, versus some of the other major cloud providers, your AWSs, you have Google Cloud out there, you have different providers that, by the way, to this point have had a major monopoly over the high-end compute resources. I do want to touch more on that, but how would you say having locations around the world and what you guys are doing, what kind of differentiators and advantages do you have versus some of those other players?
Well, first of all, cost is definitely number one. And then service. The way we service accounts versus the way Amazon, Google, Microsoft do, it's not even close. It's very hands-on. It's very personable. And we've all dealt with this with larger corporations. There's definitely a need for these centralized, bigger companies that are providing a GPU compute. But if you need hands-on, if you're a startup or even a mid-sized company, and you really need our help in optimizing this to the best that is best for your project, then we're definitely a better provider for that.
Yeah, and looking at that landscape though, the H200s now bringing on the Blackwell, it has been monopolized by these large cloud providers, and in many cases they're using them internally, and to get access can be very difficult. So, that's a big part of what you're doing, is trying to democratize this compute to make it more accessible for more entities, right?
Yeah, they also lock you into 1-year contracts. They want you to use a certain amount of a minimum set of compute, or they charge you anyway. So unless you're a large organization with a lot of money, you'd be crazy to use one of those big three. I'm not knocking them. They're providing a good service. Don't get me wrong. But if you're mid-size or smaller, or even enterprise level, and you just want more flexibility, if you have a side project or you have other projects that are relying on mission critical AI compute, you should be taking a look at us, especially on cost alone.
And that's a great segue into the type of customers you're serving in the use cases, because in my understanding, you all are able to bridge to Web 2 customers, which is really important because, yes, while the demand in the Web 3 space for high-end compute is growing, the vast majority of the total addressable market still lies within the Web 2 space today. So I'm curious, how are you guys attacking that? Because security has to be a big factor there, I would imagine.
Yeah, security is what no one's talking about, but it needs to happen, and that's why we use TEE security levels and protocols in order to protect your data. A lot of people don't know that when you're putting your information into these other LLMs, you're exposing potentially your information to nefarious actors. And that's why you got to also make sure, whoever you're dealing with, that they've got at least a TEE level of security set up for you.
With you all focused on the security side, how has that helped you bridge into the Web2 space, and what types of customers are you serving? I know you probably can't mention any of them by name.
Well, I'll give you two types.
Yeah.
So the first type is who you've already mentioned, the IONETs, the Aethers. There are marketplaces that are coming to us and securing enterprise grade compute. And then the others are larger, mid-size companies, startups, and some large enterprises. And we're going to get there with the large enterprises too. But anyone that requires compute and they want flexibility, they want lower costs, they want more of a service element to that engagement are coming to us.
How do you see this moving forward? Because with AGI, with AI agents, where do you see your biggest opportunities from a compute perspective in the growth in AI?
Yeah, I mean, this is the big one. I don't know if your audience is ready for it, but okay. So let me paint you a vision first, and then I'll work backwards from that. So within 5 years, you're going to have AGI, which is basically AI that can think for itself and it's creating new knowledge. And that requires a lot of compute. This totally changes the game on everything. You're going to have autonomous corporations. We're going to have autonomous supply chains. A lot of these things are going to be run by AGI, AI agents, and then AGI powered robots. Now, we're not going to see that overnight. I think the first robots to come online to do manufacturing and some of the other things are going to be 5 years away, but they're coming. It's going to happen. So if your job is one of those things, and most of us are, including us marketers, you've got to think about, okay, what's the future? But just getting back to your question, the amount of compute that's needed for that is a $9 trillion investment and 1,000 times more compute that even exists today. So with that as kind of a background, this massive shift requires a way more compute than that we can even fathom of putting together through data centers. So if you remember what DeepSeek did to the LLMs, right? They did all these fancy algorithms and they were able to, they claimed it was $5 million. Believe me, it was much more than that, but manufacture an LLM that was at least competitive with ChatGPT, which is true. We're going to have to do the same thing with compute, or we're going to have data centers all over the world and everywhere, and we're not going to be able to figure out how to power them, because it's one thing to have the data centers, it's one thing to have the chips, it's one thing to have all that, which is in flux. We don't know if we'll be able to supply them. It's another thing to power all these things. So that might involve big nuclear power being put everywhere around the world, or maybe in certain locations, but it's going to get really interesting really fast. And not only that, the AI models are going to grow exponentially in complexity. So what we see today is not what's going to be in 5 years. So when you're looking at 1,000% increase in AI compute demand, or 1,000x more increase in AI compute demand over the next 5 years, we are doing everything possible to position ourselves at the center of this explosion. And we feel our business model, where we start to take over a lot of these data centers and we start to optimize them and we start to develop DeepSeek-like algorithms for it, we think we have a huge potential for growth.
Yeah, the power side of this is something that a lot of people aren't talking about. I mean, some are. I think a lot of people are focused on the hardware, aspect, but the power is going to be massive. And it is interesting you bring up nuclear. I have a background in solar energy, and there's a time period not long ago where we thought there would never be another nuclear plant built in the U.S. That seems to be changing, and globally that seems to be changing. But the struggle for power is going to be a massive issue as we move to AGI for sure. Speaking about DeepSeek, you did mention there are certainly questions about how much it cost and what type of GPUs they had access to. I think that's being investigated right now. But regardless, it does seem that they did drive some efficiencies. I think it spooked the market. There's no doubt about that. I think there are a lot of people that were concerned. I believe you have a different stance on that as far as what type of opportunity might come with that. So would love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, I look at DeepSeek as a major advancement. It's definitely not a threat. To me, it's just the opposite. I think we're myopic if we think it's a big threat. More efficient AI does not reduce compute demand. It increases it. If you make something more readily available, people are going to jump on and build with it. And we haven't even talked about the video needs that are going to be coming as a result of all this kind of stuff. So for me, that means AI compute demand will keep growing, and the need for compute is even more essential. So yes, even though they've made it more efficient, more cost sensitive, um, that only will increase the need for compute and AI from around the world. These DeepSeeks we need more of them, and we need to figure out how to do that with compute, and that's what Exabits is focused on.
Love it. I agree, and I love that take because and we've seen this with other industries. As you have efficiencies, as the barrier to entry is lowered, more and more people can come in and innovate. And I think that's going to be really important because we are kind of at this period right now where there is a concern, and unless we have these breakthroughs that all this compute power is going to be controlled by a select few. And then you have censorship issues. You have a whole host of issues that come with that. And it'll hold back innovation, I think, as well. So I believe what you all are doing is so important on so many different levels, being able to democratize AI compute, allowing more AI startups, more players to enter the space and truly innovate to achieve the full possibilities when it comes to AI. Anything you want to add on that?
I mean, there's so much. How much further do you want me to go?
I love diving in on this stuff. I think fully understanding. I think there's a lot of people out there. We understand AI is coming. Okay, and
Yeah.
Up until recently, it's kind of been a pie in the sky. Okay, AI will be here at some point. I think we finally saw a ChatGPT onboarding of new people utilizing the technology. But I think it is important to really touch on where we're at because AGI, you say it's 5 years out. That's a lot sooner than a lot of people think. So with that, when you talk about AGI robots with building, I mean, what are some ways that you think this could fundamentally like shift our lives moving forward?
Well, it's going to shift our lives dramatically, and people don't understand that, don't realize it because you can't really see it yet.
Mhm.
Even though I've just kind of shown you what ChatGPT has done to healthcare, corporations, marketing, anything and everything that AI is starting to, let's just say, help. So we have helpers that need humans to drive that help to happen, right? We have to ask it questions. It comes back. We have to make sure it's accurate. But when you have AGI that's thinking for itself and developing its own knowledge above and beyond human knowledge, and it's doing it at massive scales and a million times faster than the human brain can think. And don't even get me started on some of the quantum computers that are going to be working in concert with those GPUs. It's you can't even fathom what's going to happen. So AGI will fundamentally shift the world into a brand new world, and it'll be a better world, assuming we can keep it from, extincting humans. So I'm going to go with the positive and go with what's going to happen positively, and that will be AGI will allow us as humans to say, "Here's my goal for humanity. Help us build it. Help us create it." Or if you're in real estate, help me create this skyscraper, and it'll be able to do it in weeks, not years, because everything will be interconnected. The AGI, your AGI, let's just call it a GM, will be working with the city automatically in real time, super quick to get the permits and everything that's necessary to do it. And then the robots would be building this particular skyscraper. We're not talking 5 years, folks, but probably 10 years for this. But we're going to see incremental steps that get us closer and closer to this. So our jobs will become more, I guess, puppet masters or goal setters. And then we'll have AGI powered robots and AGI powered autonomous corporations that are running it. Now, the good news is if robots really do take over manufacturing and farming and all the rest of the stuff, our costs go near zero. To do the farm, you're not paying labor to do the farming. I know there are other costs to farming, but everything will get reduced dramatically. And I can't even describe what that economy looks like yet. I haven't thought more than just that. I just see what's going to happen, and it's going to happen.
Where do you see blockchain as part of this? Because in one of the interviews I listened to, the whole economy side of this and funding these robots and AI agents, I thought that was fascinating, talking about how blockchain will be utilized there.
Yeah, blockchain will be where everything is recorded. So in a supply chain situation, robots would be AGI powered robots will be reporting into whatever it's manufacturing, whatever it's doing in real time. So we'll get real data, and we won't have to wait for humans to kind of enter it in at certain checkpoints. It'll be real time information, and you'll be able to ebb and flow based on what they're reporting on. So that's just one example. There are several others if you want me to cover them.
One of the ones I thought was interesting was when they were talking about how can you make sure that these the AGI robots aren't bad actors, right? And the way that they're funded. I know that's kind of down a rabbit hole, but I thought it was really interesting because that is concern. I mean, I know we're focusing on the positive things, but there are negatives that could happen with all this. So I thought it was really interesting. You're talking about how the funding could be cut off for some of these agents to keep them within legal parameters, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we have to build in what Isaac Asimov talked about, 3 rules, some of these rules for robots, and one will be thou shalt not harm humans. But I just wonder when we get to true AGI, would the AGI just ignore it at some point, just like they hallucinate? AGI doesn't hallucinate, but we know the LLM models hallucinate, or are there bad actors programming these things to do bad things? If it's all on the blockchain, we'll be able to see some of this happen in real time and be able to stop it. I think ultimately we'll have AGI that's looking out for human interest and stopping these things before they happen. I think that's probably where it's going to go. If I'm guessing, this is crystal ball stuff, so don't hold me to it. But I'm hoping we're smart enough to kind of put some boundaries around this and not let it get out of control. But ultimately, would a higher being want to destroy human civilization, or would it try to lift it up and make it better? I think ultimately that would be the question.
That is the question, one I'm sure we will come across in the future, maybe sooner than people are thinking.
It's going to be sooner. It will be sooner. That's what people don't realize. Just things are moving way too fast, and there's no signs of a slowdown, except for the power and compute needs. But other than that, it's not slowing down.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. So bringing it back into Exabits here and growth opportunities, what are you guys looking to do, through the end of 2025, revenue opportunities, revenue growth, network growth, and then looking further out in the future, what do you guys have on your roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, our revenue will certainly exponentially increase over the next year or two, just based on demand. Even if we did nothing, the demand for compute is extremely high. We are putting out a token. We announced this last month. I can't give you an exact date, but we are putting out a token this year. It's not a meme token. It'll be tied to a very robust, so let's say, compute economy. So there'll be a lot of value in that, a lot of utility in that. So some of your users might want to take a look at that, and we'll make announcements relatively soon. We'll see. I would think that we would continue to provide, let's just say, optimized compute for providers, so that you saw what DeepSeek did to the LLMs. We'll probably do something like that in 2025 for compute, which will make it more efficient, more powerful, even better. And then we're going to continue to grow our partnerships and make sure that we're bringing on the best partners to help our customers, solve their problems, essentially, if you boil it all down.
Well, you are definitely on the right track, hitting 10 million in revenue last year. Going back to the token, I am curious, what made you guys decide to go the Web3 route? What does that enable you to do as far as from a growth perspective and bringing in more participation? And just curious, what
Yeah.
led you go that way?
Well, we think that's the future. We're big believers in kind of the Web3 paradigm, decentralized, autonomous organizations run on a blockchain. We are very big on that. We're investing in that. We see how we can play a huge role in that. We're still Web 2, for the most part, because we know that transition hasn't taken place yet. We believe it will in the future, especially, I talked about this, AGI, fully autonomous corporations. That's going to happen. There'll be $1 billion. I've already predicted this. There'll be $1 billion fully autonomous corporation in the next 5 years. And we believe that is kind of the Web3 concept of it'll be decentralized, it'll be managed by AI, we'll be the compute provider, and we can't wait to see how all of this, and including the Web 3.0 community, shapes the future.
Yeah, and that is the big takeaway here is for all the things we're discussing, they have to be powered. and that is what you all are doing is providing that compute power, that base layer at an enterprise grade level. And that is something that truly I haven't found anyone else in the Web3 space that's doing it. Obviously, other ones are providing it by using you as their base layer, but you all really have the team, the expertise to build out these data centers that are necessary for that to happen. And that is, such a big differentiator. For people that, want to learn more about Exabits, you guys have been super active on your socials. What's the best way for people to keep up to date, to learn more about your project?
Yeah, you just mentioned, which is true. We had an update to our website. We made it much more clear about what we do. I think internally, when I first got here, we were just kind of playing around with different concepts. Our goal was really to make it super simple for you to understand what we do. And the new website reflects that. And everything that we're doing, at least today, can be found on the website, including a light paper and some of the other things that are alluding to a token, a TG event in the near future.
For people that are really wanting to learn more, if you go to their blog, they have so many articles about new partners, just about AI. You can learn so much about what they're doing here and just about AI in general. It's truly fascinating. We are on the edge of some major breakthroughs. And I would say, like, truly the golden age of AI is coming. We're on the precipice of this. And so super exciting to think you guys are going to be powering this big movement. Is there anything else you want to add? I know we've covered a lot in this interview, so just curious, anything you want to add before we cut off?
There's a lot of fear around ththis. I mean, those that are aware of what's happening, there's a lot of fear around it. I think most people are oblivious to what's going to happen. Maybe that's a good thing. But we got to look at certain regulation. As much as I hate government regulation, we have to be careful here as human beings to make sure that these things don't turn on us in the future. But other than that, I have a positive outlook. I know that we can kind of control it, and I think a higher level being isn't going to be destructive. I mean, that is how I feel about this. I think they'll be more supportive than anything else, and we're just going to have to see. But imagine this. I will leave you with this. Imagine AGI conducting 1 million experiments a minute on aging, on cancer, on diseases, and being able to implement those results, model the results, and implement them on human trials at a speed never before seen, all FDA approved. Everything will just be streamlined. So I suspect once AGI is truly out there, and estimates are 6 months to 3 years, we will see some very rapid human level, healthcare level improvements for you, your family, and everyone else.
Love that. And that is what I'm going to be focusing on so I can sleep at night. All the major positives. Mark, I appreciate you coming on. As I said, I know you're super busy these days. You guys are you're doing something truly different. Very excited about the token launch coming. I can tell you that I'm personally planning on making a pretty substantial investment, not financial advice for anyone watching, but keep Exabits on your radar. They are doing big things, and they're doing it legitimately. There's in this space, I think we've seen There's a lot of projects out there that are more focused on marketing than on actually building. Exabits has been focused on building. Now they're also focusing on marketing, which is great to get the word out. But again, thank you, Mark. Appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Thank you.